Hello.
Hi.
Uh, can you tell us your name?
Yes. My name is Miche Venerable.
Uh, can you give us a little bit of what you do?
Yeah. Um, I currently work in a nonprofit agency, Stanford Youth Solutions, based in Sacramento. I'm a youth advocate. I'm a recent graduate at Stanislaus State University, and I graduated with a social sciences major, concentrations, gender studies, ethnic studies, and economics. So, and I'm pretty active in my Sacramento community.
Pretty smart.
Yeah. Yeah. I would hope so. I'm trying.
Uh, so, can you tell us why you're here today?
Yeah. I know that there's always opportunities for people to share their story, regarding their family, and I can see the power in storytelling and um, what difference and the impact it can make with bringing justice and awareness to injustices to families and survivors and to lift legacies. So yeah, I'm here to share the story of my father and to lift his name and his legacy.
Uh, your father was murdered by Sacramento law enforcement.
Correct.
While you was very young,
hmm I was there. In fact,
he was there.
I was asleep in the house. Yeah,
And how old were you?
3. My brother and I. My brother was 4.
So, uh, who else was in the house or while
Yeah. So it was me, my brother, who were asleep in the house, and then my mother, and my father were outside.
Um, can you tell us a little bit more about your father or what you do know
Right? Which I know we talked about a little
of?
earlier.
Right.
Um, I I wish I knew who he was as a person. I've only seen photographs. I don't know how he sounds, or I don't remember how he sounds. I'm sure when I was 3 and prior to that, I obviously heard him. But it's not something that at least my family really talks about. Him as a person. Although I do hear, he would be proud of me today. I know that, and I believe that 100%. Um, yeah, I mean, this is 18 years later where I'm I can speak up about it, and I have a voice, and um, yeah, that was something that I didn't get to really experience, him as a person. Um, so that's what I can say in regards to him. His name was Donald Venerable. I don't even think I mentioned that part. Donald,
Uh,
yeah.
no, I don't. Do you know how old he was?
hmm
How old was he?
33.
That's young.
33. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
very young.
yeah. And a really crazy thing, it's as I'm getting bits and pieces of the story from my grandmother, which was his father, and she actually recently shared that his last words were, um, I'm not supposed to die like this. She shared that his best friend, was there, and that's what he had said. And I mean, I found out that I was even there about a month ago. I didn't know that, so news to me too, type of thing. So, yeah. So 33.
Um, so can you go tell us the details as you know that led to his murder?
Right. So from what I have been reading and the stories that I've been told, there was a domestic dispute, and with any type of dispute, I know that we're always encouraged to dial 911, which is what he did. So there was a dispute between him and my mother, and he picked up the phone and he dialed 911. The altercation between them, from what I hear, got a little physical. Um, and of course, if you see a black man getting physical, the stereotypes we hear, we're threatened by the black community, and particularly black men. They, society has painted them as threats, and as dangerous people. And because of that, um, some point, so back to the story, the officers arrived, two officers arrived. The names of Officer Casey Dion and Officer Joseph Ellis, who's now Sergeant Joseph Ellis, arrived to the scene, and my father pulls out his cell phone, and witnesses say, at least from the reading that I received, that some people say, he had his hand up, one hand up, and he was holding, in his pocket his cell phone, and he had stated he has a cell phone in his pocket. He's gonna grab a cell phone, and he grabs his cell phone, and the officers mistook it for a gun, and then he was shot 6 times. And then I also hear that it took too long for medical to arrive to assist him, and even when they did arrive, um, they didn't treat him in a timely manner. So, you know, that was very careless from what I have heard as well. And then he was officially dead at a nearby hospital. Yeah.
Um, and what happened um, after that? What happened to the
The
police officers?
right. From what I explained a little earlier, they are still very well serving as our law enforcement officers. So it was basically a slap on the wrist. One of the officers was a rookie police officer, and um, they're still serving, really no penalty. I believe I read something where there was a paid leave for a short period of time that obviously it had to end because they're still serving. um, and so my grandmother filed a lawsuit um, against my father's civil rights. Um, what happened, at least with that specific lawsuit, I'm not sure like where that followed. I know that there were conversations regarding different settlements. Some were denied, and some taken into account, the account of the city. Um, And then it, started a conversation with different police reforms, such as body cameras. And so that actually sparked conversations with, okay, officers would be required to have these body cameras, accountability purposes, and all of that. Obviously, with those in account, that doesn't do anything because 15 years after that, we have Trayvon Martin. And then 2 years after that, we have Stephon Clark, who, if you know his story, was murdered by Sacramento police in the same area for pulling out a cell phone, which was mistaken for a gun. Um, so not much justice has been served, really, for um, most families who are wronged by law enforcement, because they're protected. They're heavily protected by the union, by whichever city, and it's majority of the time a slap on the wrist. Um, we want more than just these charges, petty charges. We want convictions. Um, and yeah, I mean, in my father's case, it was neither. It was just small settlement. I call it hush money. Um, and yeah, they're still currently serving in Sacramento's law enforcement to this day, as of one who uh, got a promotion. He's Sergeant Joseph Ellis now. So, and that's never pleasing to see. So, yeah.
Um, yeah, that was that I can imagine how difficult, would be growing up, knowing that you was robbed of your father. You know.
Right. Yeah. I was, and I don't think um, I grasped that for a very long time. It was the way it was the way the story was presented to me was very, um, how do I describe this? It was very subtle. I don't want to say shallow, but it was presented as if it wasn't as big of a deal as I think it is today. And as I see for families today, it was just one of those things where it was like, this happens to Black people, and we hold our head up and we stay strong, and we don't talk about it as much because it's kind of uncomfortable to talk about. Um, but it's, like, unfortunately this stuff happens, and it happened. It's unfortunate that it happened to you, to me. Um, and I learned more about the situation when I turned 18. And I just looked up my name. Really, I looked up his name, and I read the all of the court documents. I read everything I could find. And that's when I realized that, um, this is a bigger deal than I thought it was when I was, younger. Um, yeah, and I never talked about it. I never spoke up about any of it. Whenever I even shared my story, I shared in a way that it was, um, I shared in a way of, like, don't feel sorry for me. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm fine. I mean, which I am, and I never want anyone to pity me. Um, However, this does happen, and justice does need to be served still, and they will remember his name. And he did not deserve to die that young. Um, he was robbed of a lot. He was young. Um, and yeah, I mean, just definitely getting more comfortable sharing that piece of me and my family, because yeah, I mean, it happened a long time ago, but that I mean that doesn't matter.
Uh, you have two older siblings.
I do.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Do,
For my father's side, yes.
do they remember anything about them, or do they talk about them at all?
Yeah. So, I'm really only close to one of them. So my oldest brother on my father's side lives on the other side of the country. Um, and so, oh, excuse me. So my brother who was there as well, and he's only a year older than me, so very close in age. We're pretty close. He is definitely more comfortable talking about it. He has more memories um, of his experiences with my father that I can't think of one vivid memory with him. I wish I could remember. I don't. But he does, and he shares that sometimes, and yeah, yeah. And I'm sure my older brother, my oldest brother, he's probably maybe 10 years older than me, so he for sure has more vivid experiences, like because he experienced him as a kid, as a bigger kid. So yeah, I never really got to talk to him about him though. So yeah.
Um, if you had opportunity to uh, make people accountable for what happened, what do you feel should happen to the officers?
Right. Hmm. Which is crazy because it's not really something that I have really thought of. Um, well, first, I think the bare minimum my family deserves an apology, because that is something that we weren't granted, at least from my experience. Not that I've seen. So that's and the officers not being police officers anymore. I think that's the bare minimum. I think that what I really would like to see, what would be true justice in my eyes, would be the abolishment of the entire police organization. I know that probably won't happen in my lifetime. I wish it would, but I'm doing the work to make that happen. Um, at least what I can think right now, there needs to be more accountability. I think that's the first step. I think that the case should be reopened, and I think that the settlements that were discussed, the lawsuit against his civil rights, should open up as well. And um, I think it's time for that conversation followed by action, needs to happen, um, and then reparation. So um, in no particular order. So uh, yeah, at least from what I can think off the top of my head, that's what I see as some forms of justice. I don't know if it'll ever be true justice until the entire thing is burned to the ground. So that's really where I'm at. Yeah.
Uh, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Would you like to say anything else? Add anything else?
Hmm. Not that I can think of. I mean, but thank you, for giving me this platform to share my story, because a lot of people aren't aware of it, and um, his name again. His name was Donald Venerable, and um, he had a whole family and a lot of people who loved him, and I think that the way it was handled in 2001 um, was very, very poorly handled by the city, by the Sacramento Police Department, and there really was no justice at all. And very, very careless and very desensitized to the entire situation. It was very, at least from my understanding, it was treated as if this happens often, which is very sad. Um, so, and I appreciate any platform that I'm given to lift his name, and to share my story and to share his story. So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you.
Uh, Sadly, this is it does happen too often,
Right.
and it's also sad that we have to create a platform like this because it does happen
Right.
too often.
Right. Yeah. And Sacramento PD are terrorists. So, yeah. I hope they watch this and see the terrorism in themselves. That's all. I think I'm comfortable ending there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.